Connect Through Art, which is the name of the program that we have at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia for all of our virtual offerings for programs. And so this morning, I'm going to be focused on elements of art and principles of design. So here I am. So if you can't see me, there's still a picture of me. And the session, my idea was to introduce participants to effective methods for exploring the elements of art and principles of design. And I also asked, if possible, have on hand an assortment of paper for backgrounds, a variety of household objects, kitchen utensils, office supplies, craft materials like pipe cleaners or craft sticks. Because the fact that I'm here came about as a result of a conversation that I had with Ardith. And we were talking about the fall. This was before we had any idea what schools were going to look like. Were students going to be back in the classroom full-time, part-time? What if like the virus cases go way back up, they start closing schools regionally, locally, or across the province? And I said, you know, in terms of opportunities to engage with art, you know, making things easy and simple for delivery in the classroom, virtually, teachers working with students at home, and artists said, hey, great, you should do a session for the Summer Learning Academy. So here I am. And I'm delighted to be here because I have been thinking, I have been at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia working in outreach programs, working with our outreach programs for schools, ArtsSmarts Nova Scotia and ArtReach for almost 20 years now, and I love my job. But this fall, I know that all of our program offerings need to be delivered for schools virtually. So I am tasked with that as 100% of what I'm going to be doing. So today's session, I've got a webcam set up, the camera on my computer. I feel like I'm at a command center here. I'm surrounded by art supplies and handouts. And so getting comfortable with this form of delivery is essential for me, and I hope it's also helpful for all of you, because we don't know what the fall is going to be like, but I'm still excited for it nonetheless. So the why of today, why am I doing this? Why are we here? Knowing and applying the elements of art and principles of design enables students to respond to ideas and experiences by making and examining visual art using the language of art. That's something I embrace wholeheartedly. It is learning a language. So the students getting comfortable with using the terms, what we refer to as the elements of art and the principles of design, allow them to talk about art in a very knowledgeable way and to start seeing what it is that they're seeing when they engage with art, both their own and the artwork of others, and professional artists can deepen their level of engagement when they have this language to draw upon. And the primary curriculum documents, I also should say, in addition to this presentation being taped and available through the Summer Learning Academy, I've also uploaded this presentation, which will be available with all the other slide decks, as they call them. And also after today, so tomorrow on my list of things to do, I'm going to be uploading a shared folder. So it will say, you know, shared folder, Kris Webster, elements and principles. And in that folder, you will find all kinds of additional information, everything from a book and reading list that I compiled for my students when I teach at the Mount and Mascad. So books and readings that I rely upon, that I find very helpful, activity sheets, other resources, some references to artworks in the gallery's permanent collection that you can draw upon. So there will be a shared folder with all of these documents as PDFs. Please feel free to use them however you want, and also to share them with colleagues. And so I do have, and here I say the primary curriculum documents that I reference and draw upon are those that are used by the Nova Scotia Department of Ed and Early Childhood Development. And online, in those curriculum resources, you will find two what I consider to be very good handouts that you can use with students. And so here you have a list of the elements of art, symbols. I thought it was nice that they use what I call the universal symbol for teachers, which is the apple, and very easy to understand definitions of each element of art. So elements of art are the tools that we use and that artists use to select and arrange the elements, influence the way we view an artwork, convey their ideas and meanings. So the elements of art as tools. And these tools are line, shape, form, color, value, and texture. But then how do we use these tools? So we apply art techniques, and that's when we are involving the principles of design. And those principles balance, repetition, pattern, movement, rhythm, contrast, emphasis, and unity are the techniques that we apply to the elements when we make art. And like I said, both these handouts are available as PDFs online. So I thought a warm-up activity I like to do with students as a way of introducing the elements of art and principles of design. So here is one of my favorite warm-up activities. So what I do is have the students produce a set of shapes for themselves. And as you can see, I say I assign shape creation before art class, ideally in the past, because also in addition to my work at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, I'm also a fully certified teacher. I started my teaching career in Vancouver and North Vancouver, teaching art and drama between grades 4 and grade 12. And then when I, like many Maritimers, I moved back to the Maritimes and settled in Nova Scotia and started teaching for the Halifax, now the Regional Centre for Education. And up until a year ago, I was working, doing a job share as an art specialist for the Halifax Centre. And so I certainly miss my time in the classroom. I really love teaching and being a teacher, as well as my work at the gallery. But that aside, when possible, what I would do is reach out to the math teacher or a math teacher and say, how about this? Have the students produce these shapes in math class, and then they will be ready to come to art and use those shapes for a warm-up activity that I'm going to be doing with them. So a way of combining art and math, and then they arrive ready to go. And so here you see a list of the shapes that they were required to produce. So I would begin by giving them a choice of papers, white, black, colored, as the base for their composition. And then with their shapes, I would lead the students through exploring placement of their shapes. So these were the prompts that I would initially use. So I would instruct them, start with 3 of your 5-centimeter squares. Together, side by side at the top, spread them out. Group 2 together, put 1 by itself. Try overlapping. Add the circle, try different placements. So by giving them these prompts and requiring them to then act upon these prompts, I'm not just giving it to them and then they sit there and say, well, what do I do with them? And me not saying, oh, just move them around and have some fun with them. I take them through prompts to get them to start really looking and seeing these shapes and realizing I can overlap them. I can create balance. I can create contrast. I isolate one shape from the others. Does my eye go to that shape? Is it a stronger color than the other ones? I have choice. I say trade 1 square for the big one. I can make all kinds of choices as the composer for my composition. And then after taking them through all these prompts, I say, now experiment with different combinations of your own colors, spacing, and when pleased with their design, students can glue it down. My choice of words, my terms, a pleasing composition. It may be pleasing to you, I may say, well, you just lined up all the same shapes, like all your 5 centimeter squares in one line down the side of the page. If that's pleasing to you, absolutely. It's when the student gets to that point, they're really happy with it. I would be circulating and they show and they say, this is odd. And then it gives me an opportunity to talk to them about their decisions, their element and principles decisions. Why is this pleasing to you? Why have you chosen to put that there? Now I thought, okay, so that's great. So we're doing this activity in the classroom. School goes in the fall and everybody's happy and everybody is healthy and well. But I thought, you know, there's also ways to engage with art, to empower families to acquire their own supplies and explore these opportunities at home. So of course I ventured forth to the dollar store to see what was out there. And I found these bags of wooden shapes in 3 varieties of shapes, $2 a bag. They're very sturdy. They're a thin laminated wood, laser cut, I'm sure. And then I brought them home and I laid out strips of masking tape on my work table and then stuck the shapes to the sticky side up of the tape and then painted some of the shapes, used my markers to color some of the shapes, used some oil pastels. So all of a sudden I've got colored shapes to work with. And so that would then give me the ability to do additional work at home. So, you know, even if I don't have, you can still use colored construction paper. It's easy to cut and cheap to acquire. But there was something really fun, even for me, about using these shapes and their sturdiness. And so you can see on one side, the composition is a line, but there's a rhythm to the line. Excuse me, just my allergies are bad this year. Sorry about that. So there's a rhythm to the line. We go from large, medium, small, back to medium, small, medium, large. Look at the colors. I've repeated the orange, but I use the pink circle as a focal point at the center of the page. On the other side, I've started to overlap, move shapes around, combine a larger variety of shapes. And then in our permanent collection, so it's always great to use all art engagement opportunities to also give students the opportunity to learn more about artists. And in this case, it's a Nova Scotian artist. So Marguerite Zwicker is an artist that we have at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia in our permanent collection. And the last name Zwicker may be familiar to you. We have Zwicker's Gallery here in Halifax. And in fact, Zwicker's Gallery was run for a long time by Marguerite and her husband, Leroy. And at the time, I didn't know this. It was the only venue in Halifax which regularly featured art exhibitions that were open to the public. So although Marguerite is best known for her scenes of Nova Scotia villages and landscapes, I went into our online database, and our online database at the Art Gallery is called Argus, A-R-G-U-S. And I'm also pleased to say that the public, you know, all of you and anyone else can go onto the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia's website and go in and look at Argus, which is a database of all the works in our permanent collection. So I thought I wanted to find some artists that I could link with this kind of activity. And so here are some works by Marguerite. And, you know, abstract number 8, you can see with the green mat around it, Marguerite was playing with shapes. And abstract art is a term we use to describe art that does not have anything recognizable. And by that, I mean, it's not a landscape. It's not a portrait of a person or a plant or an animal. And so abstract art uses the elements of art and the principles of design. Abstract art elicits an emotion, we can still engage with and talk about it, but we do not view it in the same way as we would a portrait of a person. So I thought these were great works. And again, this is going to be in the shared Marguerite's, 4 images of Marguerite's work is in the shared folder that I've produced for all of you. And the best part is Marguerite's work is now in the public domain. So you can take what I've given you and share it with your students, and show it through a presentation, reproduce it, color photocopy it, use it however you like to share Marguerite's artwork, because once it's in the public domain, then the copyright around sharing the artist's artwork changes. So that was a great thing for me to discover. So art from the oceans. Ardith, how are we doing for time? And are there any questions before I go on? Ardith, are you there?
Yeah, hi. Oh, yeah, I'm here. I just had to put my microphone back on. Oh, you're doing great. It's not quite 25 past.
Okay, wonderful. So art from the oceans. So while I was working as an art specialist for the Halifax Center for Education, I developed this lesson, and the full lesson plan with all the curriculum links and the learning indicators is in that shared folder for you. I have a personal interest, and of course it's important for all of us to be thinking about our global awareness, how we recycle and repurpose, and something that, because we live here in Nova Scotia, we're surrounded by water and by the ocean, and the amount of plastic debris that is in our oceans, and we've heard about the plastic islands. So I created this opportunity to engage with art from a very large scale art opportunity that was held at the Convention Center, part of a much larger project that was spearheaded by Sabina Fells, who was my job share partner. And I developed this for primary to 6, and it combines art with thinking about global issues and heightening our global awareness, and ideally repurposing plastic waste materials into art materials. And artists, I have 2 artists that I think are great resources for this lesson. So Mandy Barker, it might be a little bit hard to see this image, it's kind of dark, but I've given you a link, you can see a lot of her work. So it's small Disney figures. So I think this one is one of Minnie Mouse. So she manipulates her photos, and she gathered all these photos from an expedition that was carried out, the Japanese tsunami debris expedition in June 2012. And so all of the materials that were gathered when they went through the oceans, children's figurines, Lego is a huge one. Lego never degrades, never deteriorates. You could find a 50-year-old piece of Lego and it would still connect with another piece. You could still build a Lego house. So these forms of plastics do not break down. So what better thing to do than repurpose them into art? Here is another artist that Sabina found that I was very intrigued by, Stephen Wanger. He's self-taught, and he uses recycled Mardi Gras beads. When we say Mardi Gras, that doesn't just refer to the Mardi Gras that many of us may know that happens in New Orleans in February. These beads, now, St. Patrick's Day, go to the dollar store. You can buy them, $1 a string. Valentine's Day, bright red plastic beads. Buy those and many other plastic objects to celebrate Valentine's Day. But what happens to all of these things when we no longer want them and they get thrown out? And all those Mardi Gras beads get thrown into the streets of not just Louisiana, but other places that Mardi Gras is celebrated, like Brazil, and they get swept up. They used to just be discarded, but now they're collected, and artists like Stephen Wanger took them and created very large-scale mosaics that have done very well. And I believe Barack Obama acquired one of Stephen's compositions. And so here's an image of Stephen working with some youth to produce one of his images. I believe it's Orville Redenbacher, microwave popcorn. And can you imagine the glittery brilliance of such a large image that's created out of these plastic beads? So make your own art from the ocean. What can you use to do this? So here are some pictures. So those plastic beads, plastic straws. We all know about plastic straws and our efforts to replace them, but they still show up. I have bread ties. I have Lego. I have all those plastic bottle caps. So what we have at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, and what also Sabina and I collected, was out at Ilsley High School, we had an entire room, about half the size of a regular classroom, filled with buckets of plastic caps, sorted into colors, working with students in the Learning Center who were happy to sort these into colors for us. And then students and teachers and other people donated all kinds of plastic waste to us for making art. And so it's easy to acquire. And then what the students did was used blank canvases to compose their compositions on, using all of these plastic materials. And again, a dollar store, artist canvases can be expensive. If you go online and order from places like B&B or Desserts, they can use up your budget quite quickly. So at the dollar store, you can buy plain white stretched canvases, but then I also found these, it's a 2-pack for $2, and they're black canvases. And there's something about working on a canvas surface that makes it a little more art-like. It has more artness. It's a little more special than just a piece of paper. It's stiff. And so you can get these black canvases and white canvas panels, and the students use these to create their compositions. So these are 3 photos of compositions that were produced by students. So plastic cutlery, we know how much of that is around. And the little dots in the plastic cutlery, those are those little adhesive foam dots that you can buy in huge bags for what, $1? And so they all end up somewhere after we don't want them. The one in the center, you can see more plastic beads, fake flowers, children's plastic jewelry. And the one which seems to have like the glowing center, that's a metal cap off a jar, like a small jam jar. And then the large orange discs are the tops off of fancy energy drink bottles. And so these students were working on black canvases, but these don't get glued down. The art is ephemeral. And I used the visual metaphor of the ocean, and we looked at ocean imagery as inspiration. I start these lessons by showing the students a short PowerPoint that had images of global issues and like the plastic water bottles and all the debris that's showing up in our oceans. But like the ocean that sweeps in and then comes back, and we get new things on the beach, the idea for these works of art were the students create their compositions. I would take photos of their completed compositions, and then all the materials on the surface get swept away. So what they had to do, once I took a photo and they were happy with the photo, I'd show it to them. Then they could take their board and go back to the materials tables and redeposit their bottle caps, their beads, their plastic jewelry, and their bits back into the bins where they belong. So it's not about gluing them down to the surfaces. It's about it no longer exists except in an image. And then as an extension for this, I developed all the students' photos, and I developed them as squares in a square format. And then for a part 2 of our activity, keeping within our ocean theme and using watercolor paper, the students created ocean frames for their pieces. And so this is where it was an opportunity I showed them different images of oceans, as well as I showed up with a glass of water, and I said, well, what color is the water? Well, it's clear, there's no color in the water. But in art, when we capture images of water, it's affected by what's in the water, what's above the water, the color of the sky, the time of day, sunset, sunrise. So capturing water with color, so giving the students a very limited palette of of green, blue, and purple tempera pucks, and also introducing them to resist. So the white you see around the frame of the photo is created using oil pastel. And then the students did a watery ocean painting. And then the very end, they had the option to add rock salt to their wet paintings. And when you do that, as the rock salt dries, it creates little dots on your finished piece that look very much like bubbles in the water. And they were really beautiful. You can see the example I've given you of a student's work and their completed frame. Now, further inspiration. So one day in preparation for today's session, I just Googled art compositions using found objects. And I found Adam Hillman. And I thought, in my regular life, I'm very organized and I don't have a lot of additional objects, you know, in my home and in my workplace. But when it comes to art stuff, I'm a hoarder. I have buckets and bins and bags of all kinds of stuff because I'm always saying, I might use that someday. Adam takes that to a whole new level. He specializes in laying out a wide variety of subjects and takes photos of them, and as a result, produces incredibly bright and fascinating works, which he shares on his Instagram account. So I've given you the link to the first news article that I found on Adam, and then by all means, check him out on Instagram. His images are mind-blowing. And the article says, is he a professional orderer of objects or simply a visual artist prone to perfectionism? So here are samples of Adam's work. Ever wonder what to do with all those broken crayons? And when I first looked at the forks, I thought, what are those lines? And they're colored toothpicks. Here are sewing pins, paper clips, not paper clips, staples, cotton swabs, and there's paper clips. So incredibly elaborate and visually engaging compositions. So like the cotton swabs, elements of art, principles of design, very strict symmetry. It is absolutely balanced, but there's a sense of movement and rhythm. He's used, and you can see how he's shortened some of the cotton swabs to enhance that sense of movement and rhythm. Like if you think about how the cotton swabs come in on the side, our focal point, everything leads to the center, and yet a very simple, easy material, easy to cut, easy to manipulate. And when you look at it in this way, a whole different way of looking at cotton swabs. Cotton swabs are another thing that end up. We use them, we discard them, and they don't break down in our landfill, especially the ones with the plastic handles. They've started to change that, and many of them come with the old-fashioned, like they used to be like a long paper stick, and I'm happy to see that we're returning to that. But paper clips, what happens to a bent paper clip? We don't want anymore. So are you ready to make your own Hillman-inspired artful object arrangements? Because I did ask you to bring some materials with you, and so this is where I test my ability to manipulate my technology. So I'm going to switch cameras and go back, and I'm going to switch to my webcam. So settings, video, so you can see the table in front of me. Done. So, and then I'm going to turn off, I think, so you can just see that. So how is that, Ardith? Can you see the table in front of me in my hands?
Yes, I can.
Yes? Okay, perfect. So I put this aside. So this is when I would like all of my happy participants to get some of your supplies, and you're going to engage in a Adam Hillman inspired opportunity. Ardith, how is our time?
It is 9:37. So you
9:37.
Yep.
So let's spend about 5 minutes doing this. So for me, I've got black piece of paper and my cotton swabs. I found these years ago and I thought, wow, I've never seen that before. The pink And then the two different ends, the one is, you can see the one has the round end and the one has the sharp end. And I thought, well, I'm gonna buy a package of those. And I still have this many left because I thought, sooner or later, like I said, I'm a hoarder with art supplies. I always see the art potential in everything that I do. So this is where it's an opportunity to start to play. So this is a simple object. I could start to cut them, but starting to think about ways to engage and start to move things around. And just like those construction paper shapes, start to think about what I can do to change my perception of them. So, and I said kitchen utensils, office supplies. You know, Adam Hillman uses staples and paper clips. That's a pretty cheap, easily acquired object. Let's see, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. And then I say, well, you know, change my mind. I'm going to think about, because they sort of look like an arrow, as in a bow and arrow, maybe I can use them to create a sense of movement and direction across my page. And with these kinds of easy to acquire, easy to engage with materials, I also like to think that the intimidation factor for us as well as our students is decreased. You can't hurt these things. You can bend them. You know, you can see, oh, what happens if I start to bend them, right? So you could, you know, manipulate, cut, bend, tear, change. I could start to do something like that, but then I'm thinking I really like this, so maybe I can sort of go from one image to the other, like one side of my page to the other, and create that sense of dynamic movement, but not being strictly symmetrical, but still thinking, well, can I still create a balanced composition, visually pleasing? Not really a good enough sense of direction, in my opinion. But maybe then if I started to use some of my bent pieces to create some kind of a other visual interest across the top, maybe that would, I could even. Oh, I like this because now I get this feeling of the line angling up and down. I think I like that even better than what I've got going on down here. So that gives you a sense of just how I play around, how I think. I've got a composing area. I'm using this piece of black paper as my frame, so everything stays within my frame. And now I'm going to switch over and show you one that I was playing with earlier. And in moving it, I know I'm going to change it because, again, the idea is take a picture and then you keep your composition. It's not about gluing these things down because, quite frankly, I think I would lose my mind if I tried to get tiny little dots of glue to keep these toothpicks in place. So here you can see what I did was I took some of those wood shapes that I had bought at the dollar store, and I remembered that on the other side of them, they were wood. So I turned some of them back to their natural wood side, and I got out my cocktail toothpicks with the little frills and brought those into the mix, as well as regular toothpicks, and then just started to play around with them on my paper. So this is not symmetrical, but I feel a sense of balance has been achieved. And I say not symmetrical because even if you thought if it was symmetry this way, it isn't, because I've changed the orientation of some of the shapes just subtly. Now, what do you do with your own compositions that you've created in front of you? The Summer Learning Academy has a Twitter feed. So what I would like you to do, if of course it's your choice, but I encourage you to take a photo and then upload it to the Summer Learning Academy Twitter feed, and their hashtag is SLA2020NS. And I know that's posted on all the information. And so take a picture of your composition from this session and then upload it and share it with everybody else. And then, just like the Art from the Oceans and other Adam Hillman opportunities, you just sort of sweep it away and it's gone. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed that, and now I'm going to endeavor to switch back my cameras.
That was awesome, Kris.
Does anyone?
This is my technology test as well.
You're doing great.
I could not figure out a way to do everything I wanted. And now, let's see, I'll go back to, okay, so do you now see on the screen my presentation?
Yes, we do.
Great. So you've made your, and Artist, how's our time?
It's 9:45.
Okay, I'm gonna very quickly go through these. Like I said, this is all available for you online. I love wiggly eyes. I don't call them wiggly eyes, I call them googly eyes. I learned all about green screen technology from a group of grade 4 students in Lawrencetown. I got a lot of eye rolling when I said, I've never done any green screen photography. Oh, they assured me they could teach me how to do this, and they did. So scale is something I love to play with when I think about elements and principles. So I'm gonna quickly go through these. Like I said, this sheet of wiggly eyes and their adhesive was under $2 at the dollar store. So I'll put them on a teacup. I used green screen photography to put the teacup on a chair. The Cookie Monster is not green screen. I have a huge collection of small children's toys that I use as drawing prompts, mostly like those toys you get from McDonald's. So here's the Cookie Monster with a giant cookie, and that's size as. I put the eyes on a bowl of grapes. The minute you add the googly eyes to anything, you animate the object. And so this is an image of a miniature museum. So the chair is literally small and the hand is the size of a hand. And then I just threw in my bowl of grapes. If you don't have green screen supplies and equipment, no problem. I grabbed a flyer from the superstore. I cut out a chicken burger, and then I found images in newspapers and I added captions. I don't think it will fit in the box of the farm worker. I put it in a picture, an advertisement for a shoe store. And then also with students, having them produce these collages and then exchange them in person, virtual exchanges electronically, and have other students come up with captions for some of these collaged images. Here we are, questions and comments. And in the presentation, this is a link. You can email me directly. You can ask me about today's session. You can talk to me about the programs for schools that I manage for the Art Gallery, ArtSmarts, and ArtReach. Any and all inquiries, comments, welcome.